Is Portland dangerous? In today's video, we are going to be talking about just that. Let's get after it. If you're new to our channel, hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, because we love having people be a part of our community. We put out content every single week on Portland life, and we value giving good content to you. And we love it when you guys reach out and make comments below to our videos, and you reach out to us about making a move or buying in the Portland metro area. So if that's you, hit the subscribe button or reach out to us and let's hop on a call. Portland, like any city, has a varying level of crimes or areas that might be a little more dangerous than others. We are no different than a lot of the big cities around the country. Over the last few years, people have had a growing concern about homelessness, public disturbances, property crimes, things of that nature. And yeah, we did see a lot more of it coming out of COVID. But is it better than it was? Is it improving at all? Is it getting worse? Let's talk about it. Okay, neighboring variability. It really varies a lot around Portland. I think a lot of people make the misconception that Portland in general is just very dangerous and, anywhere you live or go, it's going to be just, terrible. But that's not true. There are a lot of us who live in Portland and feel very, very safe. But like any city, there are areas that tend to have more crimes, and depending on those crimes and locations. For instance, down in the Pearl District or Northwest 23rd, we've sold properties down there. We've talked to locals and they all feel generally safe in those areas. But you can go several blocks over and it can be a different perception. So just like neighborhoods, especially in the urban parts of Portland, you're going to hear a lot more about maybe it being a little more dangerous or more active crimes. Now, as a real estate agent, I always have to preface that I am not an expert in this field, and I have to direct you to websites, which I will provide in this video, that you can go on and scan, and that'll help you determine, based on the address of a property or location, what kind of crimes may be active in those areas. Now, I need to preface by saying every area, including the suburban areas, are going to have some level of criminal activity. But in general, if you're looking for specific locations and want to understand the level at which certain crimes are happening, then some of these websites can be helpful in determining that. But I caution everybody in saying a very generic term like Portland in general is dangerous, because it is not in general dangerous. There are parts to be aware of, and that's where you have to do your research as a consumer. As a real estate agent, we always tell people to do their research, because some people might think a lot of crime is low crime compared to other areas. So it depends on what your ability to accept a certain amount of crime and what type of crime is going on in that area. Other people want to stay far, far away from, say, specifically homelessness, because they feel like actively the crimes happen more in those areas where there's more homeless. That might be statistically the truth. So, but do your homework online, and I'll drop here what those websites are. There are two websites that you can do crime research. First of all, if you're looking specifically in Multnomah County, this is a great website. It's called portlandmaps.com. This is a website that you can type in an address of any property in Multnomah County, which is the county that is in Portland proper, and basically get a ton of information on that specific property and the area around it. For example, you type in an address in Northeast Portland, and it's going to show you permits on a property, zoning, and criminal or crime statistics. So that's a great website to go to learn. The other website I'm going to recommend is called crimegrade.org. Again, you can put in a zip code or an area of Portland, whether it's Washington County, Clackamas County, or Multnomah County, and get a lot of data on the types of crime and how prevalent the crime is. Now, one thing you'll notice if you go to this website is you're going to see that you might type in a zip code, and then there are hot spots, right? And then there's areas where have very minimal crime or, criminal activity happening. And that is something that I would say to focus on, because a lot of people, if they just generically look on the internet, they might hear something about Portland in general, but it doesn't account for all areas of Portland. There are obviously neighborhoods and locations that have low to very minimal amounts of any kind of, crime going on there. And then there are areas that are very, very high in crime. And that might be something you want to research if you're looking into specific areas. Now, Obviously, the more dense the area is, the more it sits in urban areas or, public transportation, you're going to usually find a higher density of crime happening. There's just more foot traffic. There's more access to those areas. So that's something to be aware of. Again, if you're looking in the city, you're going to see a lot more crime for obvious reasons, just like I explained. But do your homework on a specific location. Now, even in the bougie areas of Portland, like Lake Oswego, Westland, Tualatin, Tiger, these areas that tend to have a little more affluence, we have crime. I know, shocking, right? But it's just the type of crime and the consistency of it. And that's where you still have to continue to do your homework. What's the most type of crime we see? Well, it's property theft and vandalism. Shocker, right? That's what we typically have. There's not as many areas that have violent crime rates that are skyrocketing. In fact, Portland is considered the lower on it in many cases, unless you get to certain hotspots within the Portland metro. Out in the suburbs, you're not going to see as many violent crimes on a high level, but definitely we see a lot more property theft and, vandalism happening throughout the Portland area. That's probably our biggest crime that we tend to see. But again, do your homework. It's no surprise that downtown Portland has a lot more homelessness and drug-related activities. That also tends to be a mixture with mental health illness. And it's no surprise that we see a lot more of that within the city of Portland. We hear a lot more about maybe the violent crimes that you hear about on the news happening in those regions, because those are areas that are more densely populated with people that are homeless. And they tend to have that as their, culture. Is it getting better though? A lot of people would say it is getting better. Portland has instigated a tax, a houseless tax that you pay that is supposed to help clean up. Now, we here that live here have all seen the cleanup happening. Now, whether it's getting better, it's hard to say, because you can, get an area cleaned up, but where do those people go? Are they still around? Some people would say they're scattering more. Other people are saying they're condensed to one area. We are seeing more areas designated in town where the city has said, this is where you are going to go instead of living on the sidewalk. And so that has been helpful. We do also have a new mayor who is committed to getting houseless off the streets within 1 year, a highly aggressive goal. We're hoping he has a really good plan, but it's yet to be seen what'll happen with that. The city is actively working on improving public safety and homelessness. Now, we always tell people when you visit, look around. You're going to see it here and there in different parts of the city. It has greatly improved from the COVID era, but we still have a long ways to go. And we always tell people to do your homework and get on some of these websites. In fact, if you're in the city, a lot of times just meeting some of the neighbors of where you're planning on living is one of the best ways to check out an area. We had sold a property to a client of ours down in downtown Northwest Portland. And one of the things that I recommended we do is talk to people walking on the streets. They're walking their dogs. They look like they're out and about. And we stopped and asked them questions about how safe do they feel? What are they seeing out there? Because neighbors will often tell you things that nobody else can. And it was a great way to understand what the vibe is. What is the feeling in that general area? And we got some really good, honest feedback. In most part, people felt safe, but they were cautious to say that when you get a certain location down the way, several blocks down the street, that it starts to change. And that's a fair response. I think most cities have areas that you need to be a little more careful, or maybe you're not going there by yourself or at different hours of the night. But in general, it was a great way to see where in the neighborhood people felt like they could be without ever having to have the feeling of their safety at jeopardy. As a general rule of thumb, the more urban you are, you tend to see in the way of more crimes. It's just a statistic that you can't miss. If you're living in a densely, walkable area or close to public transportation, you're just gonna see more crime happening, whether it's theft or otherwise. So do your homework. It's really important to research the areas you're choosing to live in and what that looks like. By just going in and driving through a neighborhood, you can't often tell what may be going on there in general. Neighbors will tell you, statistics online. You can call and check if there's been a lot of, phone calls into this area with the police or non-emergency services. that'll indicate to you whether there is a consistent problem or if it's just a general, we live in the urban area and there's just going to be some things. What is your tolerance is kind of the question. For some people, they want the assurance of a suburban area where they don't have to deal with all that stuff. And we do have people that move different parts of town to different parts of town to get away from a lot of the property crime. Some people have reported in certain parts of Portland that their cars are getting broken into consistently, that packages are taken off the front door, or even that they've had criminal activity in their house from people who have broken in. And so that is something to be aware of in terms of what do you want to, nobody wants this stuff, but what I'm saying is what are the odds of it going to happen to you if you buy in a certain area? So doing your homework is the most important way for you to do it. As real estate agents, we are not allowed to tell you higher crime area, lower crime area. We have to be very cautious and provide you resources that you can do your homework. But this video is designed so that you can just be given a heads up. Like, we're not the person that's living in the communities that you're particularly living in and can speak to it. There's going to be a lot of information online that can help direct you to find out what does it look like in the areas you're looking at. And again, there's areas that have a lot of it and there's areas that have minimal of it. So this is really just a heads up to be an advocate for yourself in this area if you're truly concerned about the area you're going to buy in being dangerous or not. And this is also to say that just because you're in the suburbs doesn't mean you're not going to experience some level of crime. I live in the suburbs and I have been broken into once about 15 years ago, and I would consider that neighborhood to be relatively safe. But when somebody is strolling a neighborhood looking for opportunity, if you have your car doors left open, your house doors left open, if there's an opportunity for somebody, they may just take it. So this is also just to say that no area is going to be void of any kind of crime. It's just the matter of what does it look like for that area and your tolerance level for what you're seeing based on your research. Thanks for watching our video on Is Portland Dangerous? We would love to hear your feedback if you live in Portland, if you've lived in Portland, and whereabouts in Portland general you live, because everybody's experiences are different, as we mentioned in the videos, depending on where you live. But we'd love to hear any comments or feedback. And if you have questions about making a move and getting more information on this very topic, reach out to us. We're always happy to help.